Hi there, everyone. Time for our coffee chat. And this morning, or today, or this evening, whenever you're listening to this, we're going to be looking at a student who is quite anxious about maths. And maybe some of us as adults are still anxious about maths, and in particular, fractions and decimals. So here's Linnell to take us through that coffee chat.
Thanks, Gail. So we're going to look today at a student we're going to call James. I've said he's in year 5, but he actually represents any student in sort of the upper primary, upper elementary part of school. He's anxious about maths, and the teacher's going into a unit on fractions and decimals, and he's really struggling with that. So the teacher's concerned about how do I differentiate for James, who's, saying that he's dumb and he's getting quite upset, and how can I encourage him while still covering the expectations of the curriculum that teacher has to teach.
And this anxiety, Linnell, just sorry to interrupt you, it's quite widespread, isn't it? This being anxious about maths. It's not something that, maybe 1 or 2 students have. It's probably more common than we think, isn't it?
Unfortunately, yes. We can talk, it's around the 1 in 5, 1 in 4 students.
Okay. Yeah.
This is quite common in, and teachers, we'd love to hear whether that's your experience as well. And I know it's also common for teachers to feel really anxious about, particularly in maths, the gap can be quite large.
Yeah.
And so this is the teacher's goal, understandably, is to meet the curriculum expectations for year 5 while still meeting James's needs.
And his functioning might be quite a lot lower than grade 5 level. He might even be operating, say, at grade 3 level.
And that's what the teacher has to find out.
Yeah, so they're going to gather evidence.
Yeah. They have to go. And what I've put is this order of evidence. This teacher is going to use a universal screener, actually do something to assess the whole class to find out if James is not the only one with some difficulties in fractions and decimal understanding, and also maybe even go back a little bit from that and find out where does the breakdown occur? What are they? How are they with whole numbers?
Yep.
Once they've found out that from the universal screener, then they can go down to a diagnostic one-to-one interview. But it shouldn't have to be everybody now. But the universal screener can be a whole class assessment. So it could be something from a program, something they might have available online.
Yep. And we know how busy teachers are. So giving a diagnostic one-on-one interview that might take maybe 20 minutes, half an hour to every child, it's just beyond most teachers.
Yeah.
Because they just simply don't have the time.
No. So we want to cut down. So you need to have a good screener. It could just be a unit, an end of unit assessment, and that helps you work out whether they can or can't do. But you do need to understand students can go under the radar with a pen and paper assessment and actually get the right answer because they might have followed a procedure but have no understanding. So that's where your interview is so important.
But also if all the answers are multiple choice, they might be able to guess the right answer, but not actually know why it's correct. So it's a good guess. And they got it right, but they can't explain it. And that's where the interview one-on-one comes in to its own, really, doesn't it?
But also you could even make sure in your choosing in the screener, Gail and I would say try and avoid screeners where multiple choice is
the only answer. Yeah.
You need to have other ways to be determining whether they can, for maths particularly, show you're working out.
Yep. And that's where that working out would become part of a work sample that you might use to refer to show where they're struggling.
Yep. And now more common use is using technology. So they actually could record their thinking Seesaw is a technology option that many teachers use, where they show they're working out, but they also do an audio recording over it.
Yep.
So you could, that could possibly be done as a universal screener.
Yep. Okay.
And I do love classroom observations. And we'll dig deeper into that later about how you can capture some really good ones based on your curriculum. So interventions. What did this teacher have to do to get their goals, which was to keep going with the curriculum, but also to meet James's needs and find out whether maybe there were some other students that needed the same. And of course, there was. So my recommendation to this teacher is do regular whole class counting routines with the whole with number lines and bar models available. What you can't see under there, which I nearly forgot myself, was in context, because it helps it make sense to the student. So, why are we counting by tenths today? Let's put a context to it. Well, we're counting by tenths because we're looking at the Tour de France, which is happening.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that the intervals between the riders as they go through the finish line is, 1/10 difference. Or we're counting by tenths because we're counting in money and we're adding 10 cents each time. That context can take it away from this very abstract, 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10. Really specific and meaningful to students, and meaning helps engagement. But they need to see something. It's not just a rote count where they get into the rhythm and the rhyme and don't understand what's going on. If they can see the patterns repeating and they can see the sizes growing as we get to 5/10, that's bigger than 1/10, and 11/10, that's one whole plus a little bit more. If they, the research tells you students at risk of mathematical difficulties, they need to see concrete materials, they need context, they need number lines. And one final intervention that the teacher can do at a classroom level is have a range of fractions and decimal examples that was determined that this student could do, and then go to the harder ones that might be at the year 5 level. So maybe the student's working at year 3.
Yep.
So we'll have some year 3 examples today. It doesn't hurt the other students to see that worked out. It helps consolidate their understanding. You can even call them up to do the explaining, because by having them talk, the research will tell you that is so powerful in making them get it. And then, of course,
how did those interventions go?
That is wonderful, because it made the student got some light bulb moments. They could see, 5/10 is the same as a half. Look at that. There was some relief in that they were able to do the work that they were set to do in independent practice, because the teacher had modelled it so beautifully with the concrete materials and with the visual models. And over time, each day, and because there's repetition in that, I say, let's do this counting with all of these models and resources every day. Increased engagement. They start literally leaning in. Hands go up. Oh, I can do this.
Success breeds success. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And the resource that I love around this is a book by Jessica Shumway, where she gives a lot of context around, you could track the daily temperature in your area, the maximums and the minimums, and they can go into decimals, or just some really fun ways of having context around your daily activities.
And maybe we can go into those at our coffee and cake, at our cuppa and cake session.
We sure will. And so we'll join us in our group so you can get more resources, and we can share more specific examples of the longer term, what to do if what you do in a classroom is still not quite meeting the students' needs. We'll go into that.
If you're in our Facebook group, you can also post up additional questions, and we can either take those up in the cuppa and cake session, or we can respond to you individually, or both. So that's one of the benefits of being in the member group on Facebook, or getting access to the private YouTube channel that is available to members. So we'd love to see you there. Thanks, Linnell.
Bye.